Good morning and happy Friday, everyone. I'm back. Welcome, Corbin, Mike, T, Matthew, Kingman, Sean. Thank you guys so much for joining the stream today. We've had a wild week in the market, and the SPY actually just broke all-time highs this morning. We have stocks like AMD slowly selling off. We have DraftKings exploding to the upside. They reported some really strong earnings. I'm a huge fan of this company for the long term. They had some great user growth. I believe their revenue is up like 300% year over year. They just have a lot of good things going for them. They also raised their guidance. In my opinion, they're a powerhouse company and they're great for the long term, and it's awesome to see them popping up. Welcome Kieran, Jamie, Alex, and Vicky. Thank you guys so much for joining today. But Tom, do you have any of your eyes specifically on DraftKings or any other stock or catalyst?
Man, DraftKings is really awesome to see today. I'm really happy to see this. I hope a lot of people were grabbing shares down here on DraftKings because, man, while DraftKings has been below $50, I think it's been a steal to be grabbing shares down here. And like I said, I hope a lot of people really took advantage of those lower prices while we get them, because we might not ever see $50 on DraftKings again. You know, it might be quite a long time with the way these earnings are shaping up. Those are honestly really, really good. Yesterday, Mike, while you were gone, we had Penn actually report earnings, and they did pretty well. Yesterday, and they ended up posting a really good green day, which was awesome to see. And maybe they'll be able to kind of continue up with DraftKings doing well too. So I would think that both of those stocks could start to really turn it around. And just looking at the daily chart, Penn bounced right off of that like resist or support, like right around $63. Just looks really, really nice.
For sure. So welcome David, Maine, and Jay Mac to the stream as well. Thank you guys so much for joining. But we have Kingman saying, I'm new to options trading, but learning a lot. Well, that's awesome to see, Kingman. Thanks so much for joining. Penn's not looking bad so far. Tom, look at this open. It looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's actually looking really nice, running up towards that high of yesterday. That high is around 73.43. Looks like we actually just broke that, hitting 73.70 right now, 73.75. Overall, these stocks are loving to run. I think Penn is going to run off that DraftKings news today too. I think that was a really good thing for the sector overall, just sports betting and just these gaming stocks in general, not, video games, but like gaming as in like betting money and stuff.
For sure. All right, and then Tom, we have Moderna they're kind of trying to put up a fight. So they had an amazing month, and now their open is looking a little bit rough. They're sitting right around 409, but personally, I think this one is way overbought. And statistically speaking, after companies are added to the S&P 500, normally they fall off a good amount, and I just think from a technical level, they're just so overbought.
Yeah, and looking at this, they were running up into these earnings. They reported earnings, and now we're seeing some movement back down. So I'm not saying the earnings were necessarily terrible. You can see their EPS was actually really good. The earnings went pretty decent for them, but it's just that they're getting so overextended on the daily chart. And Mike, yesterday I was telling people that on a technical level, I think I could see a pullback somewhere to around $350.
I mean, yeah, that would be crazy, but I can definitely see it like over the next couple months or so. You said three. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. It's like a $60 pullback, but I can definitely see it as well. I mean, I like the company. They're putting up some impressive numbers, especially over this past earnings report, but you can't just move like this forever. So definitely keep your eye on that one. Looks like DraftKings is coming back up. They're up. Well, actually, they're really close to their high right now. High a day, I should say, at least. Tom, what resistance levels do you have for DraftKings?
Yeah, that high of day right around 54.95 in pre-market was pretty good. So somewhere right around $55 is going to be big. I personally had a resistance around 56, so pretty close there on that resistance. We'll just say that it's around 55. So just to make it a little simpler, but looking at it on the daily chart, man, all the way up there, right around that 55, 56 level, I think will be the biggest resistance. After that, I see $60, but on the support side, there's a pretty good support down there, right around $50 even. So I'll really be watching it, and I love the way it's starting to break up like this. I think it could start to get some pretty good moves here on the daily chart, and with it, if we can start to break out of 56, I think we'll see a huge move up to 60. But I don't think that'll happen today.
So
It'll definitely take a couple trading days.
So Tom, this might just be a coincidence, but look what happens every time DraftKings reports earnings. Like, you can go back, like, to the beginning of time, like, almost every time it pops up a couple weeks later. You know, it's not always the same day of earnings, but you look when they report earnings, then you watch what they do for, like, the next couple weeks, and generally they trend up. So, I think this definitely could be a good sign of, like, an uptrend that could last a couple weeks with DraftKings.
Yeah, me too. And guys, really put this one on your radar. I think it's been an amazing stock even before they reported earnings, but after these earnings, it's really confirming to me that this stock is going to be a really good stock for the longer term. And just looking at it, like long-term shares and anything, I think everything on this one's viable right now. Even like leaps look pretty good on it.
Oh, yeah. All right, so I know we have a lot of people looking at AMD. This stock had one of the craziest weeks over the past week and even last week. Like, it's just been exploding. It looks like it's bouncing off that 110 support pretty well. It's still overbought, though. It just exploded up so much. I was looking at, like, put debit spreads on this one, something along those lines. But, yeah, it's definitely starting to sell off pretty hard right now. Tom, like, what levels do you have on this one? Because I know that, it had such a wild ride up. Like, what support and resistance levels are you watching?
112 I thought was going to be a pretty good resistance for today, but it looks like we're breaking right through that. I would say look for 113. It seems like 113 was a really big level today, like in pre-market and yesterday and after hours, and also just yesterday, like right towards the end of the day at around 3 o'clock Eastern time. Looks like we were hitting off of that 113 resistance a little bit. So watch out there. If we get above that, I would say 114, but it's hard to say with AMD. There's been so much intraday movement with it the past couple days, like to the downside, and now we're heading back up. So there's definitely a lot of like intraday levels. I would say the main level to look for, though, is to the upside right now. I would say like 113, but it looks like AMD is actually recovering up quite a bit. That sell-off was pretty bad in pre-market, and personally, I'm holding puts, so I would love to see it go down. But man, it's really rocketing back up today at open, and I hope we can hit 113 and possibly go back down a little bit more. But this stock is definitely a powerhouse.
Good stuff. So it looks like on my watch list we have DraftKings leading the the list to the upside. We have Redfin leading it to the downside. So Redfin's down a little over 5% today. I didn't do a deep dive into their earnings, but it doesn't look terrible. It just doesn't look obviously it doesn't look the best.
Yeah, it doesn't. And I would say that Redfin honestly has a pretty good support down there, like all the way at like $50, $48, somewhere really close to that. If we could start to go down over the next few days and maybe hit like 55 and then head down to 50, I think that we could pick up Redfin for some pretty low levels, kind of like right on those supports that they hit on in the past. And I think it'll be a pretty good opportunity. And the earnings don't look like they were terrible, just looking at the EPS. Yeah, they beat their estimates even. So that's a good sign, but who knows? There's obviously a lot of stuff that goes on with earnings, but I would think that they could start to get a pop back up over the next few months, especially just looking at the way that they've been consolidating for like the past like 6 months or so, to be honest.
All right, so then we have Jay saying, good morning, thoughts on MCFE. So this one's popping, Tom. MCFE, this implied volatility is literally going crazy. Looking intraday, I don't know if they already reported earnings or what. So it looks like they declared a special dividend like a couple days ago. However, they're set to have earnings, what is that, next week on August 10th after market close, but they're moving like they already reported. So I don't really know what's going on with this one. That special dividend is great. I think it said $4.50 per share. That's crazy for a $32 stock. So to be honest, I really haven't been following this one. Tom, do you have any levels or anything?
Yeah, it's hard to give levels with the stock running like this. It's honestly getting pretty overextended. I'm on the max daily chart here, and looks like we're at all-time highs right now. So MCFE, I think, is going to do very well, though. They're like a cybersecurity stock. I know that they should do pretty well for the longer term. So just looking at them, I know that Biden and Europe were talking about cybersecurity like a couple months ago and stuff. So I'm wondering if any of that is like playing a role with McAfee at all. But I'm really glad to see it moving like this. And honestly, I'm surprised it has not been on the market a little longer than it has.
For sure. So let's see. I'm taking a look at a couple different sectors right now because, Tom, we have the market breaking all-time high. Like we look at the SPY intraday, it has a pretty strong candle, and it broke all-time highs, and that's awesome. But normally, like at least I should say over the past couple months, the stocks that are causing that explosion to the upside are stocks like Apple, Amazon, Facebook, companies like that. And you look at Apple and Amazon specifically, they're both red today. So I was looking to see which stocks are contributing to this big upswing in the market, and it really looks like banks and energy. So you look at stocks like JP Morgan, Bank of America, even ExxonMobil. Like they're having huge days today, and they are what's really bringing the market up. And I just wanted to point that out because a lot of times people figure like, oh, if the market's exploding, that means that tech has to be contributing to that. But personally, I think like stocks like Apple, I personally am a little bearish on them, and they're starting to sell off a little bit intraday. So I just want to point that out for everyone. There's a lot of money flowing out of tech and into stocks like JP Morgan.
Yeah, and those stocks can do very well. Like obviously banks are a big part of the market. They control a lot of the market, not just because of like their market cap and everything, but because of how they're like lenders and everything like that. Also, they can really adjust a lot of different things, honestly, with the markets. But also, like you said, these energy companies like Chevron, Exxon, and Mobil, they're actually really doing pretty well today. And whenever we look at like crude oil, it was coming back a lot earlier this morning. Actually recovering up a lot from yesterday, and now it's starting to sell off again. So hopefully these stocks can kind of hold their ground for the overall market. But if not, we might start to see the SPY and stuff start to pull back. But it looks like the energy stocks are still going up, and I'm honestly really hoping that we can see some of those other stocks like the bank stocks continue. I've been waiting for JP Morgan to kind of go up for quite a while now, and I'm honestly really glad to see it kind of pulling away from this bottom support area. It was honestly lingering around there way too long.
Yeah. And we had Bravo saying we are basically seeing a rotation, Mike. This is why the SPY is up a little bit and tech is down. Rates went higher. It's all about the rates. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're definitely seeing a rotation, like you said, and rates have a huge influence. So great comment, Bravo. And then we have Maine saying thoughts on Plug, Plug. All right, so this one is having a pretty great day today. Looks like they reported earnings. The next resistance is right around 30. But honestly, it kind of looks like, in a way, it kind of looks like the DraftKings earnings report. It exploded up in pre-market, and it's kind of like selling off at open. So, Tom, what do you think?
I think I like Plug for the longer term. And, they're talking about like a lot of these like EV charging companies and just different things like Plug Power and stuff, in these infrastructure packages that they're trying to like push through the House and the Senate right now. So looking at this stuff going forward, I think that these stocks will start to do better in the shorter term. And I think getting Plug anywhere around $20 a share, $25 a share is honestly a pretty good time to grab it. And anywhere under 30, I think is honestly pretty good. So even like where we are right now, I don't think it's terrible, but if for example, Plug is at $27, $28 right now, Mike, but whenever Plug gets up to 40 or 50, everybody's going to want to be buying in as we start getting up towards those resistance levels, but nobody's going to want to be buying in right now, which is the unfortunate part. But I would think it's good to buy in right now at these lows with shares and just hold them for the long run.
Yeah, I'm with you. Everyone always loves to buy high, so it's good to, buy the dip. And then we have, Bravo saying, hey guys, what do you think of DraftKings and LVS as a sympathy play to DraftKings? So he said, thoughts on LVS, sympathy to DraftKings. So I like LVS, but I don't think it would quite be a sympathy to DraftKings. Yes, they're both in like that, I guess you can say gaming/gambling industry. However, like their business models are very different fundamentally. One thing to note is I know that like MGM stock, they have like that BetMGM app, which is, it's kind of like DraftKings, but not really. Where, to my knowledge, LVS doesn't have any sort of, advanced program like BetMGM or FanDuel or DraftKings or anything like that. I could be wrong. It's just to my knowledge, Las Vegas Sands does not have that. But with that being said, they're they both deal with gambling. So I see what you mean. And at the end of the day, I like both of them for the long term and at these levels.
Yeah, and to me personally, one of the more sympathy plays to DraftKings is going to be Penn Gaming, which we talked about earlier. But it looks like Penn actually had a pretty nice pop up at market open, and now it's just kind of falling right back down.
Yep, you know it. And then we have Kieran saying Square. Let's take a look. SQ. So SQ is right at that resistance. They broke all-time highs yesterday, and they're kind of struggling right now at that 280 resistance. They've been channeling between 280 and 200 since like the beginning of the year. So if we break above this, we're at a really crucial level right now.
Yeah, we really are. And looking at it on like the max daily, Square is getting out to those all time highs. And, you would honestly expect it to probably keep running with the way that it moved like this. That's at least what I would think. But honestly, it's just one of those really hard plays to judge right now. They just had those earnings. And if we start to get a dip back down, it could just be like an all time high fake out move right there. But I would think that we could start to see another run over the next few days. And even if we consolidate for like today or tomorrow, or today and Monday, I think that we'll end up seeing a pop, over the next couple of weeks again, just with the way that we ran out to all-time highs. You usually don't see it run up only, a point or two and then start to fall right back down unless it's just a clear fake out.
Sounds good. All right, and then we have Keisha saying morning, a little late, and then she was asking about COF. So let's take a look. COF, it's having a pretty good day, up around 2%. It's a nice, slow and steady stock. Resistance right around $167 and like 50 cents.
Yeah, and I actually really like the way that I'm looking at their earnings down here at the bottom. Like with COVID, they went negative, but they're actually all the way up to a positive 7.71 EPS now. Beat that estimate last time by quite a bit. And I honestly would not be surprised if this stock continued up to all-time highs. I know that some of these credit card companies have been getting beaten down in the short term. I know that MasterCard had a big downturn recently, so hopefully Capital One doesn't end up doing that. But I will say, though, I think that just looking at them in general, I think Capital One should do pretty good.
All right, and then also she was asking about QS and if it is at a confirmed support. So let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty close. I would say that like $21.50 level is huge, and you can even say like $21.25. So yeah, it's like sitting right around that level. Tom, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I mean, it's getting really low right now on QS, and personally, I would say that bottom support level, like you said, Mike, right around 20, I think is going to be a pretty good area for it in the short term. I think it could be a good area to even like start to buy some shares now while we're at like 21. But while that is said, though, the chart's very volatile to say the least, and there's some pretty drastic moves to the downside that have been going on. So I personally am not going to play it, but if you like the company and you've like done your research on them, I think it could be good for the longer term if you buy shares and kind of hold them right now, or if you start to look at like leaps or calls, maybe a couple months out.
All right, and we have Manny Money saying SFIX. SFIX, let's take a look. Yeah, it's down a little bit today. There's a big support at 40, strong resistance at 60. It's definitely trending down right now. I'd really watch that $40 support maybe for a dip buy. IV slowly creeping up too. So really the only plays that I like on it is like maybe like a quick momentum like put trade to the downside. But I would say like the much safer route would be like to sell puts if you wouldn't mind, buying this one at like 40 or something like that.
Yeah, I think that would be the way to go too, is to maybe sell puts at like the 40 strike or just slightly under there. I think that could be a pretty good way to grab shares and possibly just grab some free premium there. So overall, I think that's a pretty good way to play this. And I don't like how it's been going down in the short term. So that does worry me, but I would think that we hold up on those supports somewhere. And Stitch Fix, I would think should do pretty well in the longer term. I know that it's like a clothing brand, like subscription service, and it should do pretty well, I would think.
All right, and then we have Bravo saying congrats on 1,000 subs. Nice to see the channel growing. Well, thank you so much for that, Bravo, and thank you guys so much for watching us live. When you guys hit the like button and subscribe, of course, it really helps us out, and we really appreciate it. So thank you so much for all of this support. And then Bravo also mentioned Disney for a reopening play. So yeah, I really like this setup. It's a solid company, solid stock. They have earnings soon. They're holding support very well, and I really like it.
Yeah, they're having a solid move back to the upside. And, we keep seeing all these other stocks going up lately, like towards their all-time highs. And I would really hope that Disney could kind of get back up there as well. And I would say that there's a solid resistance over the next couple months, right around $190, but we're pretty far away from that. If we could start to break out above 180, I think we're pretty clear. We might have some resistance around 185, but I think we're pretty clear up to 190.
I like it. All right, so let's see what else is moving. If I take a look at the scanner, let me pull this up real quick. All right, so it looks like we have Uber looking pretty good today. It looks like they're breaking out. What do you think?
Yeah, let's check it out. Uber on the charts. Yeah, really running up today with a pretty good move, Mike. And I'll say that they've had a pretty good move ever since they really fell down on earnings, and then they just recovered right back up. And today they're getting right up towards that high of yesterday, right around like $44.60. So watch for a breakout up above there. I think that we could see a good move, especially if we can pass that. But man, looking at them on the daily chart, they've been really consolidating down here, hit right off that $40 support, running right back up. And I think it'll be a pretty good play for the next couple weeks. And, I'm really happy to see them. They're finally at a positive EPS. It's been a long time since Uber's had a, positive earnings. And this actually might be, let's see, I think this might be the first positive earnings. This might be their first positive earnings actually since IPOing, which is going to be a pretty big thing for them, which is awesome. And they really beat that estimate. And honestly, guys, look at this one for a good play to the upside. I think that with them beating, they might actually start to see a pretty good pop over the next month or two.
Uh-oh. All right, so let's see. We also have Kathy saying, what's with Enphase been going down? Let's see. So she's asking about Enphase, ENPH. Enphase is down like 0.5% right now. They're at that 180 support, resistance at 200. Over the past couple months, it's really been popping up from like 120. Over the past couple weeks, it's definitely been consolidating. But, remember, this is a very volatile stock. IV is relatively low right now, and it's still at 60%. So, the stock has grown so much over the past year. We can just look, let's say we look over from like right now, from like September of last year, it went from like $60 all the way up to $230, and it's still like holding its ground at 180. So they're a solid company. They're in a great industry for the long term, and it's just to me it just looks like a normal like chop.
Yeah, it does. It's just a very choppy stock. And, they did hit like that resistance, like right at $200. So for everybody who was like trading this and got surprised that it went down, $200 is generally a huge psychological level. So definitely look out for that. Unfortunately, it did go down here. So just watch out for that in the short term. But for the long term, I like Enphase. It's just for the short term, though, it's kind of scaring me. We're hitting off that 200 resistance. And if this starts to show like a lower high or something like that, then we could start to go down more. But I would think that we would stop somewhere around like 175, maybe down here. Like, I don't think we'll get down to 150 again, but that's a pretty good support. If we fall below 175, then watch out for 150. But I would think we could start to go back up over the next couple weeks or so.
Yeah, and then Keisha was asking about FSLR, which, it's a pretty similar stock. They're both in the solar industry. FSLR has resistance right at 95, support at like you can say 80, and then you could even say 70. But they have good momentum right now. But that resistance at 95 looks pretty strong to me.
Yeah, it does. It's going to be pretty hard, I think, for this stock to break out above that. But I love how all these solar stocks are moving lately, and I'm really glad to see them kind of up here around these highs. But it's getting harder and harder to buy them up here, like especially for shares. But I would think that we could still see some good upwards movement, especially with First Solar, and especially if they throw like solar and stuff into that infrastructure bill. I think that once that passes, we might see some good movement.
All right. And then we have Bravo saying, how do you feel about MSGS and MSGE? They are beaten pretty bad, and I love the Knicks. Is it a good time to average, or is it too risky to buy? COVID is the scare here. So, yeah, honestly, it's not really a play for me. I know that COVID, like the COVID like lockdown rules can be like pretty rough in like New York and stuff. So I don't know. It's really just not for me. I'm just gonna stay neutral on it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that that's going to be my main thing. Is just all the COVID rules and stuff in New York can get pretty hairy. Sometimes they shut stuff down, sometimes they don't. You don't really know what's going on, and that's the main thing. Is you're living in a world of unknowns right now, and just looking at like Madison Square Garden, it's been getting beaten down quite a bit, and I would have like expected this to get beaten down. Maybe more of like over this winter rather than right now. And I thought it was really funny though how you added in there you love the New York Knicks. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad right now. Like I'd rather have you buying in when it's like low. It's just like the main question is investing into this stock. Does that give you the best return on risk? Or are there relatively safer options that might be able to get you a higher return? Like that's the main question to ask. Like personally, I'm biased. I really like DraftKings. I think that especially in today's world with all these lockdowns and everything, especially with New York, like DraftKings are in a lot more states, and it's all online. So I don't know. Really, you're gonna have to trust your gut on this one. It's just not really a play for me. So I'd hate to tell you what to do because it's not for me.
Yeah, me either. And that's just the unfortunate part. But I will say, as far as MSGS goes, there's a pretty good support down here around 150. So maybe we'll hold that for the longer term and maybe we'll get right back up there. But I'm with Mike. Personally, I think there's some better stocks out there. Maybe if this was like in Texas or something, I'd be a little more bullish on it.
Yeah, I feel you there, Tom. All right, so we have A saying, done a ton of fundamental research on JMIA. This is my pick for 5-year 10X. No one's talking about it. Solid bottom. Huge growth potential. I mean, yeah, they definitely do have a lot of growth potential, and it's good to be buying them low. So I like to play. It's going to be a bumpy ride. IV is relatively low, and it's at like 100% right now. So as long as you understand it's going to be a bumpy ride, that's the main thing. But I like to play.
It's going to be really bumpy. That supported 20 looks pretty nice, actually, Mike. And if we can get a good bounce here for the long term, I think it'll be awesome. And for anybody who's been really eyeing up this stock for the longer term, this is going to be one of the better opportunities right now that you're going to have to buy this. And you're buying it at a great time, right around $20 with a really good risk reward. If it falls a little bit below 20, maybe down to like 18 or something, just cut it really quick for just a couple point loss. You don't have to have anything crazy going on here, but I think the JMIA will do good for the longer term, even if you just wanted to buy and hold it and just not even, like if it falls down to 18, just continue to hold it. I think you're getting it around a pretty good price, I should say. And that support at 20 is going to be pretty big, I think. I don't think that we're going to fall below there unless earnings just go terrible.
Yeah, and then Tom, did you see SPCE's action today? It's popping.
No, I have not actually. I know I was looking at him a ton yesterday. I saw him going down in pre-market, and it was making me a little bit sad. But this is awesome to see him coming back. I'm glad to see this recovery, and man, they're already up another 8% today. I'm really glad to see this, and looks like they just had to pull back to that closing price of yesterday around 31.50, and they just bounced right off of there, heading right back to the upside, and looks very, very nice today. And they reported that they were going to start allowing those sales to come back in. They're selling more seats for and more tickets for those space flights. Currently, there's only been 2, but they're obviously going to go on a whole lot more over the next couple of years. And I think that that's where they're going to make a lot of money now. They finally went through all these test flights and everything, and now I think they're going to finally be able to make a profit.
Good stuff. Awesome. Then we have Keisha saying the SPY hit all-time highs. How's it looking?
Yeah, all-time highs, and then we pulled right back down. So I'm not sure if it's a fake out going on right now or what's going on, but it's definitely a pretty big pullback. It's not the biggest pullback. Like I'm not going to say that, we're heading like down in the market or anything. This could just be some intraday movement, but it does look like though we're pulling back maybe to like that support level right around like 441.80. There was like that high of after hours yesterday.
Tom, AMD is back up. Look at this. Wow.
Wow, all the way back up to 114, 115. If we break this 115 resistance, we might see another pop back up, and hopefully we don't because I'm holding those puts like I said. But man, I know a lot of people want this one up, and a lot of people were targeting like 130, 125, and just a bunch of different areas. And then it ended up going down, and it almost reminds me of SPCE. It was like kind of falling off today at open and then just recovered right back. And man, Mike, that recovery today at open is just insane.
For sure. And then it looks like Moderna's about to fall off a cliff.
Wow, it really does actually. Yeah, Moderna's like not looking good. They're actually falling below all these SMAs, falling below like that key support level that they were kind of holding earlier in the morning around like 406, 407, all the way down to like 405 right now. Definitely looking scary. And man, 400 might be a good support level for them. But if they start to fall through there, I would really start to look at Moderna to the downside, guys. And just looking at it on the daily chart, it has to come down sometime soon. I mean, with these vaccines, though, anything can happen. It could obviously keep running, but I would think within the next month or two, we'll definitely see it down.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it looks like it's about to fall off a cliff like by like Wednesday or something. I mean,
Yeah, it definitely does now.
yeah. All right, cool. So it looks like the main like hype stocks for today, we have SPCE to the upside, AMD to the upside, Redfin's getting demolished, DraftKings is kind of holding its levels. Boeing's kind of creeping up there. They're kind of like a value stock, which I guess it makes sense with banks and oil, or I should say energy, running up as well. Looks like Uber's running up pretty well too. They're up like 3.5%, and they're getting pretty close to testing that resistance right at like 45.
Yeah, they are actually. And Uber's like we talked about earlier, it looks like a really good play to the upside for like the next couple months, I think. That earnings look terrible, but the way it's moving now looks awesome. If we can break up through this like 44.70 resistance, I think we'll see a pretty good run.
All right. What do you think of Fastly? I know that they got or no, not Fastly. Yeah, FSLY. They had a horrible fall on their earnings report and came right back up.
Yeah, they're sitting also right around that like 42 resistance. I would think that they could pass up back through there. I don't know what to think though with the way they fell off on earnings. And I remember looking at them and really getting surprised yesterday to see them down as much as they were. And they were even down below that $40 support, which had me really worried for the shorter term. It was at like, let's go look at it on the 15-minute chart. It went really low. Oh yeah, all the way down to like 33.87 at the bottom. Now we're all the way back up to 41. So it's been a very volatile stock to say the least. And I would think that we could get another pop back up. I like this stock for the long term. And I think a lot of buyers were coming in and buying this one right back up because that's honestly a pretty good recovery after a huge dip like that.
For sure. All right, and then we have Keisha saying Neo had a nice move yesterday, but turned out to be a dud. Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're down like 1.5% today, you can say. They broke out and then just got rejected pretty hard. If they fall more, I would definitely sell puts on this one.
Yeah, I would too. You know, it seems like NIO, like for the longer term, should do pretty well. And I think with it being around $45, it's not too far away from that support down there around 40. And I think if you could somehow sell like the 40 puts or maybe like the 41 puts, I think that's a great area to get in NIO at. You know, I think $30 is better, but I'm not sure we'll ever see that again, unfortunately. You know, we were only there for a couple of weeks while we touched those levels, and then we went right back up. And just that showed you that buying on supports a lot of the times is the better way to go. And I really like to see this movement though with NIO. And I think that for like the next couple months, we'll definitely see it moving back up. And especially like I've been saying all morning with this infrastructure bill, they're talking about EVs and stuff a lot in those bills. And I think it'll help stocks. Now I know NIO is over in China, so it might not affect them too much, but in the end, I think it should help them. And they have earnings on August 11th.
And I also like CRSR for selling puts too. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, you know, they really scared me on earnings. I was pretty worried with them the way they started falling off, but I love the way they're coming back up. Even if they end up going down a little lower, I think holding these guys for the next like year is going to be a really good way to go. Like you said, Mike, selling puts or just grabbing shares in general, I think will be really good for CRSR. There's a huge support, I should say, around $25. Now, whenever we fell, we only fell to like 26 and then went back up. But I think we can see a great move out of them. And CRSR is in a great sector. I think that they'll end up doing pretty good over the next couple of years. But I will say, though, in the short term, it could end up going either way. That's why I'm saying to definitely get some time, or really, like, if you're going to buy in, just have that type of mindset where even if it goes down a little bit, don't get freaked out or anything if it falls down to like the 25 support or anything. Just, you know, have a nice sound mind and just hold it.
All right. Yeah, I like it for sure. And it looks like Moderna's getting ready. You see it? Here we go.
mRNA going down off the cliff, Mike. Are we going to fall below $400 today? I think that's going to be the big question. That I think that's going to be a really big support. But honestly, Mike, it's hitting off of all these SMAs right to the downside today on the 1 minute chart. Not looking good. Actually confirmed right off that 100 and really looks bad right now, Mike. I think we're definitely in for like that downturn that we've been waiting for.
Yeah, looks like it. Yeah, I really have my eyes on CRSR because I've been wanting to get into this one for like some shares. So I'm like really thinking about just like selling like an at the money put, or maybe even an in the money put to get a really nice return in terms of premium.
Yeah, maybe like the 29 strike, 28, which is like just out of the money. The 30 strike put might be pretty good too. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of options to look at. And I would say with CRSR, like honestly, if you have shares anywhere under like $32, I think you're pretty solid for the longer term.
Yeah, I like it. I'm really tempted. Like now I'm like scrolling through the CRSR chain, looking at different strikes and stuff. So yeah, I mean, Tom, what stocks are you watching today?
Yeah, DraftKings was one of my favorites, but I'm really eyeing up a lot of these banks. Like we have JP Morgan, WFC, Wells Fargo kind of going up today as well. Bank of America. Really glad to see these stocks popping up. And I was really eyeing them up yesterday for a possible, like swing, but it looks like these banks were looking pretty nice and actually popped today up above a lot of these resistances. JP Morgan had a pretty good one at like 154. I'm really glad to see him break that. Looks like they are sitting though at the resistance around 156.50. So be a little careful with it as far as intraday trading goes. Normally 2% is a pretty big day for JP Morgan. They usually don't outperform that too much unless there's like a huge catalyst. But I really like the banks today. And I've really also been eyeing up these other chip maker stocks, not AMD or Qualcomm, or I mean, I've been eyeing up Qualcomm, but like not AMD and other ones, but more of like Qualcomm, MU, and some of these stocks that have been down, and they're running up pretty nicely today as well. And I would think that they could start to run up for like maybe the next couple of weeks, especially like with AMD, the way that they've been breaking out. Maybe some of these other companies will start to, maybe go up for the shorter term too. But we'll have to see because AMD is starting to pull back, but maybe people will start to transition out of that and maybe hop into some of these other ones that are a little lower.
There we go. So it looks like Moderna's falling right now. Looks like we just broke 400, and the candle was pretty big. Lots of volume coming in, and I actually saw a lot of money flowing into these put options as well.
Yeah, I can't believe we just broke it. That's a crazy thing to hear. And who knows how low we're going to go today. I think we might run down to like 390 or something. I wouldn't be surprised. This stock's a big runner. You can see yesterday we opened around like 405, ran all the way up to like 444. So almost like a 40-point run, or almost like a 40-point run right there. So don't be surprised if we see this stock keep going down to like 390 or something. I think that the stock just moves so much that we could see it for sure. And definitely look out for like the next couple of days. It might be time, like we've been talking about, to finally grab some puts. And it might not be good to like buy them now and like hold them through close or anything, but on a day-by-day basis, grabbing puts like in the middle of the day, maybe catching some quick momentum around open could be a really good way to go, especially like right now, how it's really starting to get these big candles to the downside.
You know it, and it looks like we have bank stocks continuing to rally, like especially Wells Fargo. They're up a good amount, like 2.5%, which is pretty big for a company like Wells Fargo. Like if I look at some of their options, like they're up like anywhere from like 50 to even 100% on like the August 20 expiration, which isn't bad at all. So I'm actually pretty tempted to like get into like some like bank calls for this rotation.
Yeah, and I think that could be a really good play. Just be really careful. Wells Fargo's like right at resistance right now. Let me get the exact level for us, but it looks like $48, like right where we are right now, is going to be a big resistance. Let me go to the 90-day 15-minute chart really quick and kind of get back there to see what that level is. But yeah, right at, let's see, it's looking like 46. Hang on, I got to go back a little bit more. Yeah, 48.13 was that high. So look out for that. We're right around there. We might see a little intraday dip down out of Wells Fargo if we fail to break out above this. Like I said, that high was 48.13 and we hit 48.12 and we're moving down now. So we got within 1 cent. Be careful of it intraday, but I think for the next couple of weeks, I think that these banks will end up going up even more on this transition. Just be really careful just today.
All right, we have Mike asking about SOFI. I think it looks pretty solid, and it looks similar to the UPST play, so I really like it.
Yeah, really good actually on the daily. Really big support around $15. Bounced off of it quite a few times actually. I think this looks like a really solid setup actually. It looks like it's starting to go back up. Maybe it's going to head back up towards 1750 and retest some of these resistance levels coming up, but I really like the movement off that support, and just looking at the daily chart, it looks like it's really starting to turn back to the upside, and if you can catch this one around support and get it at a good level to hold for the long term, I think it'll be pretty good.
All right. And then let's see. Then we have Raphael saying, "Good morning, SPCE." Yeah, it's been popping up. It's up like over 10% now.
Yeah, it is. And it's actually starting to pull back now on the intraday after hitting like that pre-market high around 35.50. But overall, great day for them, up 11%. And they had that great earnings report yesterday. The earnings weren't great, but they announced that they were selling those tickets again. And I'm really glad to see them going up. And, I think that this company, honestly, would have kept going up, but they had that $500 million share offering, which really drove the company down. Anytime there's share offerings, it's generally not good for the stock price, but it's good for the company in the long run. And I think that this $30 support looks like it's going to hold up pretty well. And I think that this is honestly going to be a pretty good play for like the next few weeks. And I think we'll end up going back up, especially with them selling seats and stuff.
For sure. And then we have Williamson asking about AMD puts, and I like it. Like a nice put debit spread or something along those lines. That'd be pretty cool right now, I think.
Yeah, it would. And, even though AMD had a big pop back up today, there's a lot of overhead resistance. 117 looks huge on the resistance levels that I'm seeing. There's a couple before we get there. Like there's one actually today right at 115, kind of like right where we are. So if we start to see a lot of downwards movement off of this level, it might be a good entry for you. And if we bounce off of 117, eye that one up for another put entry. Personally, I'm already in the puts, and I just need the stock just to go down now over the next couple weeks.
All right. And then let's see. We have Bravo saying thoughts on NCLH earnings today. And then he also said CGC has earnings. So, yeah, I really like NCLH, and you kind of read my mind. I'm like really, really tempted with these cruise lines. I was really looking at NCLH and RCL.
Yeah, RCL had those earnings the other day, and they ended up posting pretty bad earnings, kind of like what NCLH just posted. They're not posting the best earnings, but I will say though, the stocks are at very tempting prices right now. And just looking at like their all-time highs, or at least their highs from before COVID happened, there's a lot of movement back to the upside. Like if you catch RCL and it can go back up to 135, you're almost looking at like a like a solid like 80%, 90% move here.
For sure. All right, let's see what else. All right, we have Maine saying AMD broke 115. Uh-oh, that's not good.
Yeah, not good at all. Broke 115 to the upside. We might start to see some more upwards movement today. And, unfortunately, we're starting to see a lot of stocks turn back to the upside today. And I think AMD just got beaten down yesterday and in pre-market today. But I don't know what's going on with this reversal. I don't know what happened, if we just hit the 110 support and started flying up off of that, or what happened. But either way, AMD has been very volatile, and there's been a lot of buyers coming in lately. So it's definitely been a pretty crazy stock to trade, and we might just have to hold the puts for quite a while. And if you're not in them yet, like I said, eye up that entry somewhere maybe around like 117, maybe 118. But keep in mind, though, AMD could definitely keep going. It's definitely a powerhouse.
Yeah, for sure. All right, UPST is holding its ground. So, yeah, I mean, that's the main little recap of what's moving today. I know some people pointed out that Zoom was down around like $11 or so, and I like this one for the long term. But, yeah, I mean, that's really all that's moving, at least right now. Tom,
how's Robinhood?
Yeah, let's take a look. HOOD. They're not bad. Not bad.
Yeah, not bad actually. That move yesterday was pretty bad, Mike. I know that you were gone, but it actually sold off pretty harshly throughout the day, and it had that great run up the day before, up like 80%, but then had a terrible sell off yesterday. And I'm glad to see it recovering up today, though. I would hope that it can kind of get some good momentum back up, but man, I don't know what happened. I was thinking some like big whales or somebody bought in whenever this thing ran up to $85, because Mike, that was just absolutely nuts when we had that movement.
Yeah, I mean that I saw it exploded. I mean, now what's going to happen is because it had that crazy move, the market makers know to demand a lot of premium. So, the implied volatility is like 170% on this stock, which is crazy. It's crazy. So, those options are going to be really, really expensive. So, definitely be careful with that one.
Yeah, and of course the options come onto the market like right as it's at like those all-time highs too.
Exactly. So let's take a look at coin while we're talking about like recent like IPOs. They've been trending up pretty well.
Yeah, actually, I think this looks like a pretty solid buy right now. It's been kind of like double bottoming down here. And I'll say for anybody who maybe wants to get like Bitcoin or something, but they don't want to open up like a Bitcoin account or I know you have to go through like a lot more steps and give them like your driver's license and everything like that. So if you guys don't want to, or you don't have a crypto account, I think Coinbase could be a pretty good, way to go. Bitcoin's been kind of hitting off that 30,000 support for the past like couple weeks now, and it's actually been moving pretty well. And I would expect Coinbase to kind of go up with Bitcoin. So if we see Bitcoin maybe head back up to 60K, we might see Coinbase start to fly back up maybe to 300 a share, maybe 350 or even higher if Bitcoin can get up back up to those all-time highs. And I think that it will. I think that people will eventually start to kind of transition back into Bitcoin, especially if we start to see the US market fall. Like if the S&P 500 and the Dow start to come down a little bit, I think we might see a lot of people start to transition back in.
I can see it. I'm just waiting for the day they approve a Bitcoin ETF.
Oh, me too. I think that'll be a really big factor. And I think that those ETFs, like what a lot of people don't get is, yeah, of course, like you can buy the ETF and make money on that while Bitcoin goes up, but those ETFs are actually like buying Bitcoin and buying Bitcoin futures and stuff like that too. So it actually really helps those not indices because it's a crypto, but it really helps Bitcoin, for example.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it would just be a huge step, Like I know a lot of people and like even like governments like are pretty strong against crypto and Bitcoin, and if the SEC approves a Bitcoin ETF, that can be huge. Not only for the price of Bitcoin, but also just for it being more widely like adopted and accepted. So should be pretty cool. And I'm just waiting for the day. Honestly, I don't even expect it at least until like honestly like at like the earliest, like maybe like the first quarter of 2022. But honestly, if we're being like realistic, it'll take a lot longer than that, because I know the SEC, like it was a president or there's someone with a lot of power, made a statement the other day saying like, yeah, like we'll announce some more details about what we think about a Bitcoin ETF, but we have more important things to worry about right now. And he was actually referring to, believe it or not, the GameStop fiasco that went on back in January and February.
Oh wow, yeah, that's pretty funny. I'm sure that this honestly like caught their attention pretty big because I'm sure that they probably don't want this to happen again. So like they're probably putting in like some steps in secret that nobody really knows about where, there might be like some algorithms or something out there like looking for some key areas for some stuff like for like what happened with GameStop, and maybe stuff will come in and kind of, try to keep the volume down or something. But in the end, I think that that's really interesting, Mike. And I would think that within the next year they could get a Bitcoin ETF on the market. But like you said, it'll probably take a long time. And I would think like within a year or maybe even a slightly longer than that, but hopefully sometime within 2022.
All right, Maine said, I sold my AMD put yesterday before close. It was up around 60%. Well, awesome job there. Looks like he sold it at a great time. And then we have Alex saying, how's DraftKings look for the rest of the day? It seems to be falling. What are you thinking?
Yeah, it looks actually not the best, but I will say not the worst. To me, it doesn't look like it's the best play right now. Like if I was gonna look for like an intraday pop back up or anything, I would definitely be looking at it because we're getting closer to these supports, but it's not my favorite. I would look at it just and be more of neutral on it right now. Keep in mind, this was an earnings setup, so lots of weird stuff go on. A lot of times we'll see pops up and then huge moves back down. So I'm still being a little wary because of that. I think maybe next week it'll look a little bit safer if you're looking for an entry into it or something. But as of right now, we might see another pop back up, but personally, I would just be totally neutral on it today.
All right, and then they also said, by the way, thank you, Tom, for advising on the Amd put. So awesome job. Vicky saying hit the like button. There we go, Vicky. Thank you so much for all the support, Vicky, and everyone else who joined the stream. Keisha saying FSLR is moving nicely. Let's take a look. FSLR. Yeah, I mean, it's popping up pretty well. It's up around 4%, and it has a ton of momentum.
Yeah, moving a lot since we talked about it earlier. I'm glad to see it breaking out above that 93 resistance, and it actually looks pretty solid. It's not the best on the daily chart. There's still a lot of overhead resistance coming up, but I will say it looks very solid, and I would think that for like the next few weeks we could definitely get a pop back up. And kind of like what I talked about, with the infrastructure bill, they're talking about like these EV companies and these solar companies are going to be, getting some funding and stuff in there. So really look out because that funding could really help some of these companies. That's just, free money coming in.
Here we go. So UPST's looking good. I don't want to jinx it because normally when I call it out on the stream, it ends up reversing, but it's looking pretty good.
It does. And yeah, you called it out the other day whenever it was running up at like 139.40. You were like, watch, now it's going to come down. We looked at it 5 minutes later and it was back down to the lows of the day before. And I was like, whoa, what the, Mike, you called it right on the head there. But yeah. I think today we might start to see a good break. It actually looks like a pretty good breakout. And we honestly consolidated here a lot towards the close yesterday. And then yesterday in the middle of the day, I don't know what happened, Mike, but there was some pretty big movement out of UPST earlier, like around noon. There might have been some big news come out.
There we go. And then we have Keisha saying LCID is benefiting also. Yeah, it's definitely up a good amount today, which is awesome to see. Then we have V saying, good morning, views on Win. So let's take a look. WYNN. So I actually am really thinking about this one for a dip buy.
Yeah, I really like Win. And I'll tell you what, Win has been really pulling back lately, as have a lot of these other stocks. Like MGM's been pulling back, Win's pulling back, Caesar's pulling back. And I'll say that I think they're all pretty good buys for the longer term. I've had a lot of friends who've like been to Vegas recently and stuff. And man, it's been really crowded. I went like 6 months ago and man, it was packed there. And I know that they've started to like raise the prices and stuff like that too, with like inflation going on and everything. And, I've been like looking at rooms just for fun because of the stocks and everything. And man, I'm seeing like stuff where it's like 300 a night, 400 a night, to where previously it was like 100 a night. So pretty crazy price raises there. And just looking at Win, I would think for the longer term, they could do pretty well. They're like right around this $100 area, but just keep in mind for the next few days, this $100 resistance might pose as a pretty big area. We might not be able to get above here, but ever since earnings, they've been moving up. And man, Mike, it's looking pretty tempting, almost like Penn Gaming and some of those other ones. And it just seems like all these gambling stocks for some reason were pulling back, and hopefully we can get another kind of bounce up. But I think that their main reason has just been the Delta variant recently. Obviously that's going to hurt them in the short term, but I think they'll end up getting right back up there. Maybe like it might take all winter for them to finally move back up, but I think they'll eventually get up.
Sounds good. So Tom, do you have any last minute stocks or anything you're watching?
Man, definitely looking at those banks still. Still eyeing up a little of these like marijuana stocks. We saw some movement out of them yesterday. There was some pretty good movement. CGC was moving pretty well, and CGC just reported earnings today, and the earnings have not been the best so far, but they had a really good EPS. They beat the estimate by quite a bit, but they haven't had much upwards movement. I'll really be looking at it though, because they're getting really low. They're getting close to some of these pretty big supports, and I think that CGC, Tilray, and some of these other ones are just getting really low, and they're at good levels to buy for the longer term. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to just fly up for the next 6 months straight or anything. They could definitely continue going down, but I think for shares for the long term, it's definitely looking to be a pretty good level here.
All right, and then we had Maine saying with the last question, thoughts on SPCE for a day trade, what levels to look out for. So it has a lot of momentum. It's pulling back now. I like it if it can like break out above like 35.62, you can say, and then maybe if it like dips down to like 33 for a dip buy.
Yeah, 33 could be a pretty good level if we get down there, but it might be pretty hard to see that if we see that a big dip like that, we might see just more downwards movement. Who knows?
True.
But this stock is really crazy. SPCE really up and down, hard to trade, especially hard to day trade. If you can catch that upwards momentum, I think it's awesome. I would have rather have day traded it a little earlier. Right now, I don't think it's going to be the best, but just look for these support levels like 34, 33, 32. If we hit like off of there and you start to see some good green candles come out of that, it could be a good dip buy there. If not, it might be a good play for puts back to the downside. But honestly, I would be more neutral on this one. Maybe look at like some of these other stocks like Wells Fargo, or maybe like some of these banks that are like really running up.
There we go. Well, thank you guys so much for watching the stream today. We had a great time. We hope everyone's having a good Friday. And I thank you guys so much for joining, and have an amazing rest of your day.